Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar, and today we have what might be the hardest working man in Nashville, Matthew Lee. He's been playing guitar professionally since the age of 15. He's got 20 years of playing experience with a really diverse background and loads of different styles, formats, and ensembles. Just check out his main influences: Frank Zappa, Chet Atkins, Danny Gatton, Junior Brown, Django Reinhardt, and Hector Villalobos, just to name a few. Those are all guys that are super at the top of their game. He's got not one but two bachelor's degrees in music from the University of Wisconsin at Oshkosh, where he studied recording technology and music business. And at school, his musical focus was primarily classical music, which talk about a difficult challenge. But he also contributed his talents to guitar quartets, jazz ensembles, and various improvisational groups, as well as giving private guitar lessons. After college, Matthew took up residency in Chicago, where he experienced being a career musician. He got a chance to start the classical guitar duo Dos Demasiado with longtime friend and high school buddy Tim Gonzalez, which ultimately sent them both overseas to Europe on a tour. Keeping a very busy schedule for almost 4 years of teaching and gigging, Matthew saved up enough money for his next move in his career down to Nashville, Tennessee. Currently, Matthew resides in Nashville, where he's been showcasing his talents for the past 4 years. He keeps a really busy schedule with an average of 300 dates a year in and out of the Nashville area. And we just talked prior to me starting to record, and in the last year, he's done 400 dates, actually. He shared the stage with hit songwriters such as Ray Stevenson and Buddy Owens, as well as lower Broadway legends like the Don Kelly Band. Matthew plays out a minimum of 5 nights a week all over Nashville with up-and-coming groups such as Elio and the Hank Sinatra Band, the Travis Mann Band, and the Sean and Hobby Band. Matthew just released a primarily instrumental EP called Musical Tattoo. It's a really good record. I checked it out several times, and we'll get to chat with Matthew about it on today's call. And Matthew, I forgot it. What is the name of the guitar organization you run in Nashville? Because I want to talk about it, and I don't know why I didn't put it in your bio.
Oh, well, that's kind of a little bit of a older bio. I've been in town actually 10 years now. So you do the math. It's probably a couple of years ago that I wrote that. But it's the Nashville Guitar Community. It's something I'm really proud about. It's online. Just check out Nashville Guitar Community. We have our own YouTube channel. But the idea is as guitar players, normally we're backing up artists. This is, it is, yes, it's guitar town, but it's actually singer-songwriter town more so, because they're the ones that write the songs that we get a chance to play on. And the premise was, if I were to give you 30 minutes or 45 minutes in front of a room full of your peers, what would you do? If you were the decision maker, what would you want to play? And what are you about? And it's taken off. We've done probably 5 different events all over town. Our new home is at the Family Wash, which is awesome because we can record multi-track to Pro Tools, and we have 4 different camera angles. All of those videos can be seen on our YouTube channel, Nashville Guitar Community. The last headliner was Brent Mason himself, Mr. Nashville, the guy who, definitely influenced a lot of people my age and even younger to move down here and try their hand at making music for a living down here. So it's been really cool. I'm very excited to be a co-founder on it, and I do have quite a bit of help with a lot of friends, but it's something I'm very proud of.
Awesome, man. Thank you, and thanks so much for being on the show, man. This is
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I know getting on your calendar is tough. So let's talk. Before we talk about your album, what are you working on now that you're kind of most excited about? Because you got your hands in so many different barrels.
Well, I'm kind of really itching. I'm going to be piecing together a little home studio here to do some pre-production for the next EP. So you've listened to kind of the diversified stuff of what I tried to do on my first one, which is, in a sense, is a very detailed, elongated musical business card. And that's kind of what I'm going to be doing on the next one, but take it to the next step. Just working on kind of the pre-production ideas that I'm going to do. I'm going to be doing a track for a compilation CD we can talk about later for the Nashville Guitar Community, which is just going to be one track. But, just really, besides the artists that I work for, which I'm very thankful to be, worked, sometimes overworked, just really focusing on, just developing me as an artist, as a guitar player, as a musician, and explore all those possibilities in between.
Very cool. You sound like you're just, and I hear this a lot, you're just so happy that you're playing music. That's like, can't be any better.
Yeah, it's a privilege. It's a privilege, first of all, to play music anywhere for a living, I think, to do what you want to do, because you're really, it doesn't matter how long the work week is, 7 days a week or whatever. I just went through a stretch in the last 2 months where I had 4 days off. So 60 days with,
Right.
and or 4 days off between gigs and doing this and doing that. And a lot of people are like that down here. It's, if you're passionate about something, you're willing to put in the work to see it through. And, because the product is the most important thing. It's one thing to do this, that, and the other thing, but in the end, it's really how does it sound? And there are so many, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, a song can be worth, millions, if you will, if you think about it that way, is it just saying and trying to get that point across to people too. So.
Sure. I hear. And plus making hay while the sun's shining. I get that as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's, Nashville's the hottest city to live in. I mean, there's people from New York to LA, not so much Austin because they've got their own independent thing going on, but I mean, they're just flooding. I mean, 100 people a day move here. I mean, they're saying that the state bird is the crane, not like the bird, the crane, but literally construction crane. And, prices are going up. It's rapidly going from, a very kind of in between small to medium sized metropolitan area to a major metropolitan area, literally, in less than a decade. I mean, it's nuts. So that, there's more competition, but there's a lot of people that come in here for tourists. I play a lot down on Broadway and, so that helps out. We'll just see how it winds up, in the end, if it's, worth all the growing pains, so to speak.
Yeah, it was funny. My wife and I came up to Nashville before I started this project, about this time last year, and the traffic, it was horrible, man. I couldn't believe it. It was really bad.
No, I mean, without this is a guitar show. I don't want to get into civil engineering, but, I lived in Chicago. They've got mass transit. They don't have it here. They could build a 30-lane interstate road and it's still going to have the same problems.
I hear you.
Just comes down to that. And, that's far beyond what my understanding is, but the city needs to definitely, if you're going to grow, you've got to be able to grow wisely. And I think they're taking some pretty big jumps, so, but we'll just see how it goes. It's great to have a lot of people caring about, what's coming out of this city, and hopefully, it all works out in the end. I'm just doing my little part, chugging away, and, I'm glad to be a part of it, or at least, in the conversation of, what's going on with Nashville, and especially on guitar. So it's cool to be on the podcast.
Well, thanks, man. Let's talk about some of your influences, because they are, as I said in the opening, really diverse. So I'd like to ask what you learned from a few of them, and those three that came to mind are Frank Zappa, Junior Brown, and Danny Gatton. How did they impact you most?
Well, the cool thing is, there, back in the day, I had a kind of a favorite record store that I'd go to, and, I was probably, I've been playing, I started at 9, so probably about 13 or 14, I was really, I'd, done the hard rock and done all the other stuff, and I knew that there was something else out there, and I really liked Steve Vai, and he kept on saying Frank Zappa, Frank Zappa, Frank Zappa.
Oh.
Checked out his stuff. At one point I had like 50 of his albums when I was working at a record store. So you just hearing, and without going into detail about it, basically what it came about is like, as a guitar player, the more that I got to know him, he was a composer that played guitar.
Yes.
And that's what I found very cool, is to be able to direct a band, and not just the weirdness, that he had, but just, he was not only a personality, but he was such a unique individual. And you could see that by looking at a picture of him, but you could really hear that in his playing style and the music that he composed, the music that he wrote for anywhere between, at the end of his life, for a whole orchestra. So that's what I took away from it, is that I just really liked the fact that this is the different world that he would take you to. And it was a world that he created from scratch, from the mothers of invention all the way through, his latter ensembles, and then orchestras. So that's what I took away from that, is just, I just love everything about him. He was a huge influence, not only in guitar playing, but really just in thinking, and how to approach life and how to approach music and how to approach a lot of different things.
Yeah, I think any true Zappa fan would have to, I would imagine any true Zappa fan would have to say that, because you can't casually like Frank Zappa's music.
No, and he took a while for me to grow on. I did not I think the first record that I got was Make a Jazz Noise Here, and I listened to it. It was a double album. I listened to it, because I'd listen to stuff and just kind of warm up and practice. And it probably took 2 or 3 times to go through it. I'm like, I don't know if I like this, and then the more and more that I got into it, I was like, wow, I can hear these influences of, what Steve Vai took from that. And then I became, kind of opened up a little bit. And that's the great thing about music is you don't necessarily have to love it the first time, that you hear it. Sometimes it's got to grow on you, because they're putting a lot of their ideas, they're creating their own little worlds, and you have to kind of understand the syntax to get it. No different than maybe a Stanley Kubrick or somebody that makes kind of weird movies, like, okay, why did he do that? And is this just weird for the sake of being weird, or is it weird because of the genius that this person is presenting to you?
Man, I agree with you 100%, and I think it's unfortunate because the way, and again, this topic's beyond this show, but the way people and music are heading now, people aren't willing to give music a shot. Like I had an interview with Jerry McPherson, and I said, what are some of the biggest changes in the industry? And, he's been doing sessions for 25 years. And he said, the biggest thing is, and these weren't his words, but you got to show them your tits really quick. It's like walking down in New Orleans, walking down where all the girls throwing the beads. He said, if you don't get the bottom line out really quick, there's no patience anymore. And that's unfortunate, because I agree with what you said. You want to sit and listen. What's the meaning behind it? Am I willing to have a relationship with this person? Let me check out the whole album, because that's where you can get a syntax or context of what's going on. Listen to the whole,
especially when the album's conceptual. It's like watching maybe the theme and the credits to a TV show and be like, nah,
right.
Movie. It's like you've got to let it grow on you, and anything that's creative. I mean, it sometimes has to have a setup. It's no different than a joke. I mean, if you're just telling punchline after punchline after punchline, the beauty in comedy, I think, is the way that they set it up in anticipation, and there is, comparison and contrast, and then, all that stuff. It's part of storytelling. You can't just, give them a beginning and the end, the middle and the setup and the storyline and all the different stuff. That's what makes it, to me, not only interesting, but when people do it really well, you're in their own world that they've created. And I think that was the beauty of Zappa, and nobody did it better than him. And he also had opinions on a lot of other stuff. I mean, you can go on YouTube and see some pretty interesting things, but it just, going back to the music thing, I just thought that was just the coolest thing. And nobody, I mean, I'd listened to everybody, I had done, Band of Gypsies and gone through, all the, Led Zeppelin 1, and all that, all the great guitar players, Eric Clapton, all that stuff. But he was somebody that stood out because it was like, even from, if you look through all the liner notes and all the artwork and all the different stuff, he was like the Tim Burton of freaking, guitar players. And I love that when you go in their world. Like, when you see a Tim Burton movie, yes, it's going to be weird. Danny Elfman will probably be doing the soundtrack to it, but man, is it going to take you to a place that you didn't expect and that is different from all the other stuff that's coming out there. And that's why I liked it. It's the ability to be weird, not for the sake of being weird, but because that's who you really are.
Right. I agree with you 100%. Now let's take someone on the opposite end of the spectrum, Junior Brown.
Well, basically, with Junior Brown, Danny Gatton, Eric Johnson, tons, Los Lobos, there was a bunch of other bands. Is when I was a kid, we didn't have as many outlets. We didn't have, there was a phone that hung in the kitchen. There wasn't, a smartphone. There wasn't internet, was making, kind of the transition between records. Tapes were the hot thing. CDs were to come out just slightly after that. But there was a couple of things on the weekend when you were kind of up and, your parents had gone to bed. You could do Saturday Night Live. But for me on PBS was Austin City Limits. Mm-hmm. And that's how I got exposed to a lot of these different players. And, after kind of revisiting them, because I was into, rock quite a bit when I was a kid and a little bit of jazz. And, then I prepped for college, which was classical. But, at that time, I just thought that Austin City Limits had such great music. And it exposed me to a lot of different people that maybe I wouldn't have been exposed to otherwise. That eventually came about because I worked I took lessons from a place called Paradise Guitars, who actually is our sponsor in Beloit, Wisconsin, and wound up being exposed to some of those people, or maybe through a magazine like Guitar Player or Premiere or whoever else I was reading at the time. But there was some really killer performances on there, and the more that I delve into Danny Gatton and people like Junior Brown, once again, they were real individual. You could pick them out. They could play a 4-bar phrase and you would know who that is. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, I don't know if I could say the same thing. And they would be playing blues, but there was this country element that I had yet to explore. It wasn't until, quite a bit later that I wound up really delving in and understanding their syntax once again to get into kind of language with and style and genre and all that. But just super individual. I'm doing the Outlaw Country Cruise this January, and it's sponsored by XM, but I'm super excited because I'm going to be able to hang out with Junior Brown on it. And that
is so cool.
Yeah, it's going to have the Mavericks, Lucinda Williams, Steve Earle, Shooter Jennings, who I used to play with. So it's kind of like that, it's kind of like I don't want to say the Island of Misfit Toys, but it's the people that don't it's the people that don't get the recognition that they really should. And Texas has its own independent thing, and I know you can, that's a whole nother different conversation. But I'm super stoked that I'm going to be able to potentially bump into, or maybe have a meal with, or even talk guitar with Junior Brown. Last time I was there, I really bonded with several guitar players, one being Eddie Perez, who's played with Dwight Yoakam and the Mavericks, and we really hit it off. And so I'm looking forward to that. But, once again, just creative, unique people, that's kind of, why I dug them and their style. And obviously with the Git Steel, I mean, you don't get any, different sounding than that.
Sure, absolutely. It's funny. I saw last week David Gilmour's played live in Pompeii, and that was the last band. They tried to do Pink Floyd in Pompeii, was recorded in like the early 70s. It was a big bootleg tape that went around, and that wasn't an official concert. It was just the guys playing during the day. But Gilmour's concert was like the first concert there since 49 AD. And I was thinking when I was there, because he played like every great song he's ever done, and I was thinking, man, I wonder, is there going to ever be any more concept albums like, in that genre of like what you were talking about? Because I don't think you see it. I don't think there's the patience out there to go through that. I don't know. Maybe there is. I'm not aware of it.
Yeah. I mean, it would be something that I'd really love to do. Obviously, it's very time consuming, and you're putting yourself out there. But I mean, there's you know, I'm sure that there is. I just can't think of anything, that really totally comes to mind.
Well, let's talk about an album you do know something about, Musical Tattoo. Matthew's new EP is called Musical Tattoo. It's got 5 tracks on it. It's really fantastic. It's not I wouldn't call it a country album. It's more like a rock and roll, but it's very diverse. It's got a little bit of everything on there. There's cantina stuff. There's rock, blues. It's kind of like, and I hate to make analogies, but Dickie Betts released some solo albums in the, I don't know, probably late 80s, early 90s, and it had a variety of stuff on it like that, and that's what it reminded me of. I have some questions for you, and congratulations on the record. Again, it's really, really good. I was really happy to listen to it.
Thank you. What
prompted you to make the record in the first place?
Well, it was a buddy of mine that that I had met from playing downtown, and I can always tell when there's a guitar player in the crowd because they actually are paying attention, and it makes me up my game. Because sometimes when you're playing back-to-back 4-hour gigs, you're not going to be on point the entire time, but you'll be you'll be kind of clock watching sometimes on some of them. But I could tell that he took an interest, and we became friends, and he took the step to help me out with it, and said, you need to have something that you can physically give to people, of what you're able to do. It's one thing to be able to do it live, but you can get to so many more people if it's recorded and you're able to distribute it or have it online. So we wound up doing this. The completion of it was last year at this time. So there's 5 tracks on there. 3 of them are all original. 2 of them are covers. And I specifically chose the covers because things that spoke to me in those songs. But it was the idea of putting my style on record for the people, to see, and just kind of go from there. But I really enjoyed doing it. I got a chance to handpick all the players. I recorded it at a studio in Midtown called Capricorn, and had some real great players on there that agreed to do it and work with me through my originals, and then also some pretty heavily arranged, or at least one heavily arranged tune, the Cantina Band from Star Wars, which I've always wanted to do. And we treated that almost kind of like a jazz piece, where we wound up doing the entire piece as a head, very close to the recording, mind you, and then opening it up a little bit for solos. So that was super, super fun to do. And then going to the front of the CD, we just, what else would you like me to talk about, I guess?
Well, how including post-production from the time you sat down to start recording, how long did it take to put the whole thing together?
About 9 months.
Okay.
And that, keep in mind, that's, with working 300 gigs a year, and man, these different schedules, and, can you make it this time? Can you not make, it just, that's mainly where the time went. We probably could have done it in, a week or 2 if I would, been able to really scrunch the schedules. But I really enjoyed the process of doing one song at a time and thinking the song through. I didn't want to approach it like a lot of people do demo work, is, 1 or 2 passes. Okay, we're good. What's the next one? I wasn't doing it to make money, and the people that approached it treated it as such. They put their heart and souls into it and really listened to, what was going on. And it was a bunch of great musicians. There were suggestions that, were made that probably wound up in the record that made it a better one. And that's what I wanted. I wanted that. And then because I'm putting my, hopefully best foot forward with this. And it was my first one that I've released, at least here in Nashville for the most part. And, when it's got your name all over it, you better damn well make sure it's good and it represents you well. And because you're going to be open to criticisms and all sorts of other stuff. And I feel very proud to have released it. I think it sounds great. I think the playing on it's great. Everybody did an amazing job.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly. Definitely something to be proud of. There's no, you didn't half-ass it on any of the songs there, man. It's really good.
Yeah, and I just wanted it to be pretty diverse as well. I wanted to showcase 5 separate, unique styles. So the first one is a train beat song. yes, okay, train beat Nashville, we get it, but there's some amazing picking on it. And there's a couple of, I like ear twisters, there's a couple of ear twisters, like in the first one, I do a couple of different things, in there that I'm real proud of. And I thought that it allowed for you to still play. It still was a song, but there was kind of a melody that went through there, there was, that I thought worked quite nicely. So that one turned out great. Do you want me to go through one at a time, I guess? Or
Well, let me ask you. Let's talk about Guernsey's Jig, because I love that song. It was that was my favorite song. I thought it was a very emotional, very powerful song. And is there a story behind that? Is what I was asking.
Yeah, basically the second song, I toiled with this for a while, but I had a dog that passed away from cancer, and it was a kind of an ugly battle. And his name was Guernsey, and
okay,
and he would, I thought I wanted something that represented him, where, it was kind of weird, kind of out there, high energy, but then, the second section, I kind of broke it down a little bit, but I'm like, man, and what I did is I was just like, what am I going to call this? I'm like, Guernsey's Jig sounds perfectly with the alliteration. I'm like, okay, so you're going to go jig. So I did a little bit of research on, all sorts of different, I guess, jigs and Irish music. And while this is not even close to those styles, there are elements of that I think that you can hear throughout it. And I wanted to do it completely stripped down. I wanted to do a power trio, something that I could play live, because, on some of these, on some of the guitar-based records, it's great that you have a wall of guitars, but how the hell are you going to do that as a 3 or a 4-piece live? You just simply can't. So I wanted something that spoke to, like, okay, here's a power trio. You get one extra track, basically, maybe for rhythm or some auxiliary. But other than that, that's what it is. And so the main theme on it is got like a lot of open notes that kind of simulate a little bit of Irish type music. Not a ton, but because it's kind of a rocker. And there's a theme that goes through that, and I just thought the rhythm section did a great job of really making that come to life. That's Scotty Schultz on drums, and Dave Rowe is a huge session guy here in town. He's played with Dwight Yoakam and numerous John Mellencamp, tons of huge names, but just an amazing musician. And they really brought it to life with the feel that goes on underneath that. And then obviously I wanted a B section to comparison contrast, and that's where the kind of elongated solo kind of comes out of it, and then you go back into the theme. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad people are liking it, and you're not the first person to have said, out of all those tunes on there, that's my favorite, which is cool because it may have not have even happened, it was one that I definitely wanted to put on there. Plus, it's a different style than any of those other styles on that record,
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Every time I heard it, I got goosebumps. Really, really nice. Just a kick-ass song. Kind of song that you listen to for the rest of your life. You put it on occasionally in your normal spin. With all the things that you're spinning, because it makes you feel good.
Oh, cool. Well, I appreciate that. And the one other thing with that technique on that song is I only played with 3 fingers, because my 4th finger I play with pinky slide. So that there's a slide on my pinky the entire time I'm playing everything.
Wow. Holy shit. Wow.
Yeah. I wanted to do something that incorporated like a bluesy Irish music. And, that I thought that lick was pretty cool. And once we wound up playing it, I'm like, man, this could turn out to be pretty good. And lo and behold, a lot of people are saying the same thing you are. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Great. And I'm sorry about your dog. I've had that same situation. So I think
it's happened to everybody. It was everybody has to go through it, but they're like a family member.
Oh God.
I wanted to do, one last tip of the cap to them in a song. And I thought it turned out pretty good.
Yeah, I think Guernsey would be very proud to know that was for him. Seriously, man, that's awesome. Great work. What about This Guitar Town? That's the only song with vocals on it, and it's another great melody. And I was just curious, was that you singing, and what is that song about?
The person singing on that is Sean Lacey. He's been a buddy of mine. He played with the Sean and Hobby Band downtown for quite a long time. He's working on his own career right now. Great songwriter. I love his voice. I'm not too thrilled with my voice, so I wanted somebody else to sing it. We co-wrote that together, and basically he's from Pittsburgh, I'm from Wisconsin, and all of us, it's a very transient town here in Nashville, but a lot of us were not born here, and we were kind of big fish in a small pond type of thing, and we were moving kind of the ocean, if you will, that is Nashville. And I wanted a song that represented, making that decision and what that decision's about, and what it entails and what you have to go through. So it talks a lot about those type of concepts within the structure of quote unquote a Nashville song or a quote unquote pop song or something that's a little bit more tangible. I wanted something that if I handed off to family members or people that maybe aren't, guitar geeks or, into guitar so much, that they could at least get something out of it. Like, okay, here's a song with lyrics, and it describes kind of all of our journeys, I guess, in some way, shape, or form to get to the city and kind of what goes on in a very tangible format to maybe a layperson, not a huge music or guitar aficionado.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good song, man. Very tangible, it is for sure. What did you find was the biggest difference between being in the studio and working on your own record versus doing session work for another artist?
Well, I always give it 110%. I always try to put my little stamp of, who I am on there. This one just allowed me to do it for a lot longer. And certain things that maybe wouldn't have made it on somebody else's recordings or songs, I got a chance to explore. And you don't really get that a lot when you're on a session and you've got to record 3 songs in 2 hours. This one, like I said, we sat and we did a lot of the stuff. I did a lot of pre-production at my place, but if there was something where, for example, Guernsey's Jig, where I'm like, man, I'm just not feeling what I did in the studio. That was all improv, that solo.
Oh, wow.
Completely. And Full Steam Ahead was a written solo, but Guernsey's Jig was a completely improv solo. I wanted it that way. And I just didn't really dig where I was going for the first time we were in. The second time we were in, I wound up, I think I played a Red Plate amp, which is a company out of Arizona. I got it really dialed in. I just was kind of feeling the vibe. And after a couple of takes, I think that's what wound up on there. Once again, with 3 fingers and a slide, because both those parts are those 2 separate solos. All it is just switching to the neck position for the second part, which I really like because it was a breakup. There's quite a bit going on in the breakdown part if you do listen to the song, and so that's what it allowed me to do, is to explore a little bit more, take that extra step, and don't rush through things. Get what you want on there and get out of the song, and give out to the song what you want people to get out of it, I guess.
I would imagine that's a lot more of a satisfied feeling.
Yeah, I for being a pretty impatient person, the one thing is in the studio when it's doing your own stuff, I have all the patience in the world. I want to get it right. I want to not only execute, technique wise what I want to do, but I want the soul to speak. And I was really kind of concentrating on maybe not playing a ton of notes, maybe doing some little flurries, but nothing that was just like, in your face shredding, so to speak, is really, just kind of massaging it a little bit. And I thought it turned out pretty good where it got out of it what I was kind of expecting. So.
Great, man. Good. What was the biggest challenge in making the record overall?
There wasn't a ton of challenges, a lot of schedule juggling, mainly just deciding, I've got 5 songs, okay, this is an EP. This isn't some monster, epic guitar thing. So it was making every second count, making every song, putting out there what I wanted to put out there. That was probably a little bit of a challenge, but it was fun. I'm in my element when I can create, and do it the way that I want to do it. And especially play with such great musicians that they can do anything you ask them, they can do. Makes it pretty easy.
That's awesome. That that was real. I really respected your answer. Now, when you just said that, you said not really, because that means you're just. This is such your environment. I mean, this was not like me going in the studio. This is what you do. You just did it for yourself. That was a very cool answer.
Well, I just wanted to do it. I wanted to represent myself properly because you only get so many chances, and this was a big chance to do this. I knew how important it was, and that I'm not able, and time-wise, money-wise, not able to. I don't have a studio right now that I can just walk into and just dink around with parts till the sun comes up every day. So I kind of had to have it focused, but at the same time loose enough to where if there was something magical that happened at that moment, that it was able to be captured. And I think it was a good balance between them.
You're very well versed in many genres, obviously. If left to your own devices, though, what kind of music do you like playing best, and why?
I don't know. I kind of have attention deficit disorder when it comes to stuff like that. I, in college, I studied South American guitar, so that's where the Villalobos, kind of spoke to me. Edgar Diaz, Jorge Morel, if it's just me by myself, I like doing some solo classical stuff. I love playing jazz gigs. I love playing country. I'm not I wouldn't say the greatest blues player, but I love playing blues. It just kind of depends on the situation and the mood. That's why music's so cool, is it doesn't have to be just one thing. It can be all sorts of different things. It's just whatever you choose to do, whatever kind of mood or mode you're in. So
it sounds like you're just comfort. You aren't pigeonholed, or you don't have a preference. It's just, whatever you're feeling like playing that day or that minute. That's there's nothing that really calls to you in a sense outside of music itself. I like being well versed. I don't want to be, a jack of all trades, master of none, but, have 3 or 4 or 5 different styles that I really like playing and do them really well. I think that's pretty powerful. Plus, as a player, it makes it always interesting and different. And as a listener, it kind of, there isn't, even if there's an expectation, it can keep you on your toes. It could be something different. It's not going to be, okay, we know Matt Lee's playing, we know XYZ is going to happen. I try to make it different, especially when it's a record. Sure. Live, you're kind of left to a little bit less, I think, devices, but especially when you're backing somebody else up. But I played some of these originals, and then the Cantina band I did play live as well, and it's pretty freeing, when you can wind up jumping around styles like that. And it makes it fun to play. It's fun for the players, and I think it's cool for the listeners too, because they just don't know what's next, and it keeps them on their toes. I agree with you, man. But by the way, something you said, only a session guitarist would say. Only someone that does a lot of work for a lot of artists in general would say, "Oh, I don't like being pigeonholed. I think it's good to be competent in 3, 4, 5 different things." You realize, like in any other profession, it's like, 1 or 2 might be. 1 or 2 is a stretch, but a professional guitar player that does what you do, it's going like 4 or 5, and that's very normal. So yeah, I just try to keep keep an open mind, and then also it's a lot of it has to do with mood and, what you're thinking. I strategically put these songs the way that they were on this album because I thought that it would, as the album played out, that you're going to expect a train beat song somewhere in a Nashville thing. And that was kind of quote unquote my Hot Wired, which is a Brent Mason song, but that's my Hot Wired. I got that out of the way, and I love how it turned out. It's some amazing playing. Great song. So it's got all the chicken picking and all that other stuff. I just figured if I went back and did another thing like that, that I wanted to give people a curveball the second song and be like, I did not expect that. And if you continually do that over and over, I think, while I don't think you're really going to alienate your crowd, you're just going to make it like, what is he going to do next? Yeah, it makes it interesting as a listener. Exactly. I can tell you now, it makes it really interesting. You've got a degree in music business, and I was curious, what aspect of the music business did your degree not prepare you for as much as you would have liked? Like what happened? Was there ever a point in time in your career where something like, oh shit, I wish they taught me this in school, or man, I didn't learn that. Okay.
Well, a lot of it was, to do with like kind of the retail side and manufacturing side and stuff like that. There's really no handbook that I know of for, dealing with when you're self-employed as an entrepreneurial musician, especially in a big city. I think you just have to try it through trial and error, and I think it really comes down to not necessarily understanding business a ton. There are a lot of elements that you need to understand, but understanding people and how to work with people. I think that's the most important thing. Knowing, I don't know, this guy's kind of a snake, I don't know if I want to do business with him. And lo and behold, you do a gig and he's gone and there's no money there for you. It's just knowing things like that and being able to read people well, and then also being pretty darn likable and being able to deal with a lot of ups and downs and things that don't turn out your way. That's more of the entrepreneurial side, and I'm sure there is a book out there, but for me, it's just trial and error. Hopefully not too much error. So.
Yeah, tuition. You got to pay tuition with that stuff. I agree with you. Yeah, and especially as an entrepreneur, there really isn't, something that'll prepare you for everything you need.
Yeah, I mean, like some of the books, that they had, it was almost laughable even when I was in college. Like, well, the way that you get your band signed is you start out with the demo with your garage band. And it's just like, come on, man. Seriously, I'd done all those routes. Really what it comes down to and why this album was done and why anything ever gets done in the music industry is there's somebody more powerful with a lot more money that believes in you. Okay. And that's how a lot of that stuff gets done. And in some cases like this one, this was out of the kindness of his own heart. Okay. In a lot of other cases, what it comes down to is they believe in you. They're going to throw money behind you. And on the back end, they want to make money. And unfortunately, art is not necessarily a money maker.
Sure.
And that's where I think, you're going into like you said, the guy that says you just got to drop your pants from the get-go. You got to show them everything you got, and that's hypothetical. That's, it wasn't supposed to be like that. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
sure.
Just throw everything in one basket and just throw it at them right in the beginning. Unfortunately, that's the way that it is, on some stuff. But
no, I hear you, man. You're originally from Wisconsin, you said, right?
Yes.
What kind of childhood did you have growing up?
Normal, completely normal. Nothing crazy. Was into sports, but after you heard Van Halen's 1984 when you're like old, I mean, that's a game changer.
Yeah. You know how many musicians, how many guitar players told me that?
Yeah. Well, when you hear that, and then, keep in mind, that's when MTV, like back when they had videos and stuff, actually, and not, that influenced me, and I had a local music store a mile away. And that was my home away from home. I worked there. They're still a sponsor with the stuff that I'm doing here for the Nashville Guitar Community. So I gravitated towards that, and I knew I wanted to do music. I knew it would be a rough road, but, all my friends are having kids and, working jobs. Some of them they like, maybe some of the jobs they don't like. And I'm doing what I want to do, able to carve out a living and have fun doing it. So,
Which is awesome. Totally awesome. How did you get introduced to music? Did your parents introduce to you, or you have brothers and sisters that introduced?
It was a Christmas present. It was a Christmas present. My dad got a guitar, and I got a guitar, and he stopped learning at about month number 7, and I'm still learning 35 years later.
That's very cool. Do you still have your first guitar, man?
Yeah, about 32 years later. I don't want to make myself seem too old.
Do you have your first guitar still?
It's at the house somewhere, yeah.
Oh, very cool, man. Very cool.
Mom and Dad save all that stuff. I've got enough crap down here that I don't need to store everything that I've had, so. But yeah, it's somewhere.
What originally prompted your move to Nashville from Chicago?
I actually moved home for a couple of years and taught music for a little bit at that same store that we were talking about.
Yep.
I did a trip down. We did like me and a buddy of mine. We like tried to find Robert Johnson's grave. You know, we went to Clarksdale.
Yeah.
We went to Ground Zero. We didn't go to New Orleans, but we did a lot of things in Mississippi. Then we bounced to Memphis, and then I had been to Nashville before. I just, I wanted to introduce him to, what the possibilities would be. And obviously we checked out a lot of different things, and it was jaw dropping. And from that driving home, I'm like, dude, I've got to get my shit together, and I've got to go down there. And and it took me about 2.5 years to save money, because everybody said, hey, things aren't going to be, you're not going to get work. People don't come to your door in Nashville and, oh, are you looking for work? Cool.
Really?
You have to go and bust your ass, and you have to make connections, and you have to prove yourself. And I've even heard the saying, you're only as good as your last gig. So if your last gig is stumbling, falling over, drunk, and, people remember all those things. So my number one thing was I wanted to save up enough money and approach it being very serious. So, I saved up for a couple of years and moved down here, and, haven't really looked back since. It's been a lot of hard work, but,
Well, I mean, this is our first time speaking outside of, we had a really brief conversation, I think the first time. And you're a very intense guy. And I mean that in a good way, because I'm pretty intense. I'm older than you, so I'm probably mellow a little bit. But you seem to be the kind of person that you're not going to fuck around with something. You're going to do it. You're going to be you're not in 50%, you're in, and you're going to give it 110% along the way. And if it succeeds or fails, that's fine, because as long as you're giving your 110%.
Well, when you care about something as much as music, I don't, the people that half-ass it, I think the proof's in the pudding. It shows. It shows in everything from attitude to, everything. But I just care so much about music. If it's a gig that maybe I'm not, it's not my favorite style of music, but I'm doing it, to get paid, I'm going to give it everything I got, from what I look like to how I conduct myself to what kind of gear I play to how I play my part. It's just, I just love music, and I want, I always want to put my best foot forward when it comes to stuff like that. And I think it shows, and after time and time again of doing it, that's how you build a reputation too,
Absolutely. So, yeah, 100%.
I mean, if your reputation is, well, he learned 60% of the songs, it's just not good enough. 60% in school is an F.
Yeah, right. I hear that, man. Is that common that, or I mean, I wouldn't imagine that's common, but do you run into that occasion where you got someone coming out for a gig and it's like, what the, like, did you even practice this? I mean, like, that old, those gym memes, do you even lift, bro? Is there something like that? Like, did you even practice, bro?
I think that you can tell if you do your part to know the song inside and out, or know it as best as you can, I mean, I won't mention any names or any experiences or anything like that, but it's happened before. And there's also been some instances on my end where I've been so busy I can only give it like a topsoil learning of it, where you kind of grace over it and you give it as much time as you can. But there are a lot of people that are doing a lot of things here, and sometimes you get really busy and you put too much stuff on your calendar, and I can understand that too.
Sure.
But all things being equal, especially when it comes to playing your own original music, it is like, it is enveloping what I try to do with it. So I'm really excited about this EP, and I'm hoping people dig it. I've got nothing but really good responses. A couple people from Europe that have bought it from, when they come downtown and they'll buy it, on a gig that I'm at, I have to do a disclaimer like, okay, there's only 5 songs on here. It's $8, that's what it is online.
Right.
So it's $8. It's a lot of instrumentals. There's one singing song, and I've had multiple people come back like, "Where's all the vocals? It's only acoustic." Like, they don't even understand that it's instrumental. Like, they call it acoustic. I'm like, no, there are other freaking instruments on there, and there was a lot of time and a lot of energy. And yes, there's a melody. It's just not somebody singing it. So I've had to explain that. Other than that, it's gotten a lot of positive feedback.
Interesting. That's interesting. let me ask you this: if you've been doing this long enough, that I want to ask you this: if you could give advice to your younger self, to the Matthew of 20 years ago or even 15 years ago, what advice would you have given yourself if you had that opportunity?
Probably move to Nashville sooner, because there's a lot of opportunities when you're younger, and I see that with the young kids that kind of are able to kind of, how I want to say, rise the chain faster, so to speak.
Interesting.
But I mean, I had done all the practicing. I had put in all the effort. It's a lot about meeting people, meeting the right people, being around with winners. If you hang around with winners and people with artist gigs and people that know the stuff right and conduct themselves right, you're probably going to wind up a winner. I haven't succumbed to any drugs or alcohol problem, thank God.
Mm-hmm.
I don't plan on having that. It's hang out with winners and do your practicing, and I think that would probably be the advice. I mean, I would have just moved to Nashville a little bit sooner, but I also had a couple of years in Chicago where I kind of stalemated. I mean, I worked at Rax Tracks, which was where they did a lot of Smashing Pumpkin stuff. They had some Alligator Records cuts. That was a great experience, but I thought I wanted to be, I'll make my money as an engineer and then I can do my stuff at a studio on my own time. And it just never added up. And I was in the studio consistently with some big name people, and I'm not going to name who they are. I'm like, my God, I can do this. I can do this better. Why am I back here feeding them coffee as an intern, waiting to work my way up so I can record them, when what I want to do is I want to be the one not pressing the button. I want to be the one with the guitar in my hand when they hit record.
So what was the straw that broke the camel's back that finally said, after thinking that enough times, what was the thing that pulled the trigger to said, fuck it, I'm gone. I'm doing this now. I'm sick of this.
Well, I wasn't able to make any money. I mean, I was working at a big rehearsal space there, and I just got tired of dealing with the rent. A situation. It was always about money. Because there's, apparently there's no music in money, but then the people that the higher ups, they're all making millions and millions and millions. But
sure.
I just was just like, man, if I don't go for it now, I'm just going to be wondering my entire life, sitting playing with some shitty band back home and always wondering and having that guilt of it. So that's why I pulled the trigger like 10 years ago and came down here. But Chicago, was definitely a learning experience, but a lot of it was on the air, like what not to do, how not to do this, and it was nobody's fault but mine. But, I was in my early 20s, so I didn't really know. Looking back, 10, 15, 20 years, I would have said, if I had this foresight, go down to Nashville now. You may not be able to play a lick of country music, but just go down there and get your shit together in there. It'll work out. So.
Yeah, I think we all have a tendency to somehow associate the amount of pain and suffering we've had to go through with the amount of reward that we are then deserving of. And I've done that myself at times when I was younger, and that's totally not true. You can, that's a mutually exclusive issue. Sure, paying your dues is one thing, but you do not have to suffer the way I think I know the way I thought at certain points of time in my life. You could.
Well, I think there's a time in your life when you choose the entrepreneurial route. Mm-hmm. Business in general rewards the people that take the risks.
Yes.
Playing it conservative does not. And that's what I did, is I pussyfooted around and kind of like walked the line a little bit, and it just didn't work out. I took the risk to come down here. I was serious about it. I worked on it 5, 6, 7 days a week for years before I made any sort of small breakthrough. I was lucky enough to play with Travis Mann downtown, who knew a lot of people. Long story short, one of the people that used to come in was Shooter Jennings' tour manager, and he got me that gig there. So you've got to be in the right place at the right time, but you also have to be prepared for that time. You can't do the work afterwards. You have to already have it in and be able to showcase that you can do it. And that was the risk of, moving down here. Like, oh my God, I knew 2 people when I moved down here. 2.
Well, and then you have to do exactly what you said. You don't make money sitting in the house. You actually have to go out there and be visible in some way, shape, or form. Be
seen, be heard, get up on stage, and eventually start getting your own gigs. And nowadays there are a lot of people that they'll just go on Facebook and play a couple of licks. Like, here's a lick I learned from so and so. I'm like, yeah. I mean, I'm a little bit more old school, where I'm just like, I'll do it for 4 hours and make money, or come out with an EP of like, okay, here's a full on song that I wrote and recorded with some badass players. This is what I'm talking about, not this 10-second lick that is looped on Instagram that you learned.
You learned from Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin 4 or something.
Yeah, or something like that. I'm a big believer in that. It's great that you can regurgitate what other people have already proven, but there was a moment that they did where nobody had done that style or that particular lick or whatever. They had to come up with it somehow, and they took the risk to go put it out there to the world, and the world accepted it, sometimes with open arms, and made it a legendary guitar lick. And now people are, it's great that they can regurgitate that. That's fine. That's one element of learning music, but there's a lot more to it. When you step into the original realm, it's a lot more fun, but there's a lot more risk.
Totally, man. Let's talk about gear for a little bit. Can we do that?
Yeah.
What's your go-to guitar?
Right now, Fender has hooked me up with the 2017 American Professional Telecaster. I play it stock. I love it. I've got that. Gibson has also helped me out. I love. I've got a '59 reissue Les Paul, and those are my 2 main go-to. I've got a 335. I've got a Fender Strat. I've got an Esteve classical guitar. Mandolin, most of those are my go-tos, especially for sessions, or, I find I can get a lot of stuff out of that. I'd love to have a baritone one of these days, but those are my main guitars. The Les Paul and the Fender are, you'll chances are if you see me playing out live, it'll be one of them too. I'd love to carry a harem of 10 guitars, but when you're hauling stuff around either Broadway or putting it in a van, unless it's a big tour or something like that, I'm not going to bring too much else out.
Oh yeah, I don't think it's possible. Hey, let me ask you about your 335, because I'm looking at getting one. Is there any and I don't want a vintage one because I'm not smart enough to own a vintage guitar and do the kind of work it needs to maintain it. Is there any, in the last 10 or 15 years, any years to stay away from? Or any? I
don't know that. I'm not a huge gearhead in that. This one was actually another gift. This one is a 2011. I love it. It's just run stock. Nothing
Sure.
Nothing crazy. I'll modify pickups and throw stuff in and out a lot on my tellies, but just your typical I believe 57 classics.
Those are great pickups. I have them in a SG. I love them. They're phenomenal. Really.
Yeah, and I'd love to have an SG, by the way.
Well,
any Gibson people listening?
Yeah, but there you go. I actually, that neck on that SG is my favorite neck. I don't have big hands. I'm not a big guy. I'm only 5'9", and it's like a reissue of a '61 SG, and I think it's like a 2011 or 2013. Man, is it phenomenal! It's just a great guitar. I'm so happy to have it.
Yeah, they play really well. That's one. A buddy of mine had a '64 shipped to me because he was with the Cirque du Soleil and moved around and all that. Mm-hmm. And I got a chance to play that. Holy cow. It just had just the right enough of everything on it. But yeah, they feel great.
Very cool guitars, man. What are you looking at amps nowadays? What do you tend to play?
I've got a couple of different ones. I really like, I did a Mercury Magnetics transformer in a deluxe, which is now probably 15 years old. And I've got a guy locally that helps me out with a couple of small modifications to it. I've got that, and then an Eminence speaker in there in the back of it. And I've been running that quite a bit. I just have he also modded my blues Blues Deluxe, which is the tweed version, to have like basically the preamp settings a lot closer to kind of like a Bassman.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a 64 Bassman that I'll bring on the road. Really like a lot. I play Red Plate, which is a company out of Arizona that I used on Guernsey's jig. Just super, super versatile amp, 3-channel amp. But just, I mean, the amount of stuff that you can do on it, just, I mean, you can make it roar like a Marshall and make it, you know, light like a Fender. So between a lot of them, that's kind of the tones that I'm able to generate. Right now I'm babysitting a 69 Vibrolux for my buddy that I played on a gig. I really, really like that, but that's not mine. So there's all sorts of good stuff out there, you know.
How did you get turned on to that Red Plate? Like, how did you find out? Or did they come out? Did they come to you, or how did that?
A buddy of mine that helped me with the record is a big believer in them. He's out in L.A. Like Alan Hines plays one. A couple other people, pretty big names, and you can go and check out all the stuff on YouTube. But the real versatile company. They make everything from combos. This one's the Magica 112 that I have, so it's a 112 cabinet, but with a separate head. So it's got, you know, a clean, a lead, and a second type of lead, so you can get all sorts of different sounds from it. I mainly just use that for the studio. That does not go on the road. So. And
how many watts is that?
That one is 50, and you can bring it down to 18.
Oh, it has like an attenuator or something.
Yes.
Oh, that's phenomenal. I'm going to call those guys. Maybe I'll get them on the show because that sounds interesting. All right, man. Let's talk personal questions about some personal questions if you're good with that.
We'll see.
Yeah, man. Tell me if you're not. Best childhood memory.
I won the talent show playing the Star Spangled Banner as a guitar player in front of all 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and won like $50.
Oh, that is very cool, man. Were you thinking Jimi Hendrix when you were playing that?
Yeah, I did that, but I did some tapping and I did my own version of it. I practiced for months, and apparently I did good.
Very cool, man. What's your biggest business or personal win so far?
I'd probably say, you know, I mean, biggest, I don't know. I mean, probably deciding to move down to Nashville, where I'm, you know, probably making more money or making a decent amount of money that I would if I were to just take some, you know, a cubicle job somewhere. So that financially, you know, I mean, it's out there. It's the money is there to be had. So,
well, you've got a hell of a work ethic, though, man. Not many people are willing to do the things you do, and I'm all for that. I totally respect that, and I'm the same way.
Yeah, so. That definitely helps, you know. But that's you know, when you're able to make you know pretty decent money on a couple hour gig when it's a private party. I'm starting to do lots of weddings, so I mean, it just kind of depends on that. Plus, I'm now teaching Skype lessons on the side. So if anybody out there that checks out the record or anything like that that's interested, there are different avenues of getting a hold of me. That always helps out. So
yeah, and we'll talk about how to get a hold of you at the end in a couple of minutes. I got 3 more questions for you. Most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you on stage or in the studio?
I was at 8 Seconds in Indianapolis, and I watched the lead vocalist walk out because there's like tables that go out, like elongated tables, but they're 2 separate tables. I watched him walk out there to talk to his family. I'm like, it's kind of like a catwalk. I'll go out there when I'm doing my guitar solo because I checked my chord and it was long enough. I walked out there and the table collapsed.
Oh my God.
I like broke my ankle. I broke my headstock, but not to the point where it was unplayable. It was just really out of tune. So I'm sitting there trying to, and it was the stage was so hard to get back up. I had to like halfway in my solo just throw the guitar up on stage, then heave my body up back on stage. It was probably in front of like 300, 400, 500 people. Yeah, it was pretty embarrassing. Then hobbling around and
Oh, what happened? Just
trying to be cool.
What's the best advice you've ever been given, Matthew, and who gave it to you?
I don't know. I don't know who gave it to me, but But if you put in the work and you put in the effort and, you're well educated on it, trust your own instincts.
Yes, that is a very valuable lesson for people. I mean, that's really important. And it's, I know whenever I have not trusted my instincts as an adult, it's always come back to bite me in the ass. So.
Well, I mean, it just kind of comes down to if you're educated enough on certain topics and stuff like that, and you think that you kind of know, trust yourself more than anybody, or your family, your immediate close family,
sure.
Like what they're saying, like, I don't know, I don't think you should do this or whatever, just, get to the point where you can trust yourself and you're going to have, good things and bad things that come out of that. But then you can't put the blame on anybody else but yourself. And then you can learn from that. And then the next one, you're going to go, well, I did this last time and it didn't work out. How about, we look at going this route?
Man, you said that something like that a couple of times, and I respect that because I'm really the same way, almost to a fault as far as accepting responsibility for your own stuff. I think that's something in general. That's kind of I don't judge other people, but I think if people accepted responsibility for themselves a little more, their lives would be a lot less stressful. And, I really, so I admire that because I try to be like that in everything I do. Last question, man. What's your definition of happiness?
In one word, freedom. Freedom to do what you want when you want. But for me, happiness is being able to make music for a living. And I play with a lot of great people. I know a lot of great people. I'm just looking to continue what I'm doing here in Nashville. I definitely want to release more records of my own playing. Are we going to have time to kind of talk a little bit about that Nashville Guitar Community thing?
Yeah, let's do that. Absolutely. We'll make the time.
Because I'm really happy with that. I mean, that's kind of, and I'm trying to get that happiness out to a lot of different other people as well. So.
Great. You got the floor. Let's do it. What would you like to?
Basically, as far as the happiness thing, I'm real happy being able to play, music for a living, doing kind of what I want to do, making a living at it. But really, what this next step is that we haven't really talked a ton about. Actually, we have an event. It would be, I don't know when this will air, but it's actually this Sunday, the 24th. It's for the Nashville Guitar Community, and that's something I've been real proud of. We've talked a lot about individual accomplishments, and music can be so self-centric and selfish because it's like, what am I getting out of it? What am I doing? This is more of a we type of thing where a couple of buddies of mine have helped me out. And we basically put on these showcases here in Nashville, and they're maybe 1, 2, or 3 a year. But the last one we had Brent Mason, we had Daniel Donato play, Andrew Sovine, myself, lots of great guitar players on this next one. This next one that we've got Ronnie Crutcher, who used to play with Setzer, a killer rockabilly guy out of Chicago, Chris Casello, he plays country and everything. We've got Laurie Metz from Sturgill Simpson's band, just a bunch of just great players, and we showcase them for 30-minute sets locally, and then basically at a local venue. So we have people there. We record it on a couple of different camera angles, and we multi-track it to Pro Tools. All that can be found, previous performances, on our YouTube channel, Nashville Guitar Community, and just check it out on Facebook. It's a private forum. We have almost 1,000 members. And we do have a public forum, but just look up Nashville Guitar Community. It'll pop up, some of the stuff that we had previously done. And we're going to come out with the first track that I go in to do original next will be for our compilation CD that's going to come out, which is going to have tracks by all sorts of amazing guitar players around town. I mean, that you can throw a rock here in this city and hit somebody, whether it be your pizza delivery driver who probably play just as good as you, or bumping into somebody on the street. So I'm real proud of that. And it's something people, if they're listening to this, I know it's the tail end of an hour-and-a-half conversation, but definitely want to put that blurb in because it's growing and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I was in Austin a couple months ago playing at the Continental Club, and talk with Red Volkart. He's like, sure, just whenever I'm up, I'll just let you know, and maybe I can do one, getting people like that, and it's not just country, because this one is a blues bash boogie. So this is going to have lots of blues, lots of slide guitar, lots of rockabilly, all sorts of really good stuff. I'm extremely proud of that. Aside of my personal accomplishment for the CD, probably it's been one of the coolest things I've been a part of since I've been down here, because I'm kind of on the ground floor, ground zero of curtailing it to where I see it, kind of going. And I think it's really going to, be seen by a lot of people. Premier Guitar has been doing some spotlights on it, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So if you're listening and, you want to get involved, you don't have to be from Nashville. All you got to do is look up Nashville Guitar Community. It's a Facebook forum, so it's private, but check that out. And we've got literally dozens and dozens of performances on our YouTube channel, all sorts of great guitar players.
And it's YouTube, and just check out Nashville Guitar Community. And I know a lot of guys in there, and they've all told me it's a very cool organization. It's funny, I'm interviewing Andrew Sovine, I think, this week.
Yep, he did our last event, did a great job. His videos will be coming out very shortly. We ran into a couple of snags just getting all the videos out, but we already have another event lined up this weekend here in Nashville, and we'll be doing one in the spring. So probably spring and the fall. Summer gets difficult with touring. Fall can even get a little bit difficult with touring. Winter, I don't want to do anything. They say here in Nashville it's supposed to snow, and it turns into there's nothing on the grocery shelves and nobody on the street. So stay away from the winter, stay away from the summer. But we have some big stuff planned, not only right now, but in the future to come. And we do tons of gear giveaways. And Exotic is part of this. Previous guitar store I worked at, Paradise Guitars, is a part of it. We've got GuitarEffects.com, who does a ton of business with lots of local guitar players and big names. They're involved. Shaw Amplifiers is on for this one. We gave away a Fender guitar on our last one, a Fender American Professional $1,800 guitar for it's great. It's only $5 to get in, and your chances are you're going to see some people you know and some people you don't know, both on stage and around. But it's a great networking tool, specifically tailor-made for guitar players. So this is all guitar-based stuff, whether it be instrumentals, whether it be original music that you've written. It's always a great lineup. I know that because I put it together, and I know a lot of these guys, and we're just looking to expand and keep going and going and going and going with it. But definitely, in closing, definitely check that out if you're a guitar player and you want to get your finger on the pulse of what's going on with Nashville guitar players, because our forum, a lot of it will be videos of people doing stuff, or like, hey, what does people think of, this piece of gear, or this is broken, where do I send this to? Or it just answers a lot of those questions if you're from the Nashville area. And if you're not and you want to know what's going on, there's almost 1,000 people on there posting constantly daily. So check it out.
That's awesome, man. And anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up?
No, just hopefully if people get a chance to check out, it's just Matthew Lee Musical Tattoo. It's on CD Baby and iTunes. I will have a website coming up. And, for people, if they've heard my playing, you can also YouTube me. It's just Matthew Lee, Nashville. If they're into my playing, I'm going to be coming out with a book next year probably. But I've got all sorts of different stuff that I can show them in the realm of guitar playing if they're interested in doing Skype lessons. I mean, there's so many monsters in this town, and I understand if they take them from somebody else. But if they're interested in that, they can feel free to contact me, and you can do it through Facebook.
Great. So go to Facebook.com, look up Matthew Lee, and if you want some lessons, CD Baby. The name of the album is Musical Tattoo. Did I get that right? Musical Tattoo, right?
Musical Tattoo, baby.
Right. It's a great album. Check out the song number 2, Guernsey's Jig, especially because I'm biased or that I love it. It's really a fantastic album. I mean, honestly, and I don't bring people on here and blow smoke up their ass. I genuinely like the record. It was great. And it's a record I've listened to since I first listened to it when I wanted to prepare for this interview. So that's all I could tell you. Check it out on CD Baby and check it out on iTunes. Matthew Lee, man, thank you very much. I appreciate all your time. Hang on here after we say goodbye, but thank you so much for everything. I want to thank everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Matthew Lee, again, thank you for your time. You're a super interesting guy and very intense, and I love your work ethic.
Thanks for doing this, Craig. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, man. Go to everyonelovesguitar.com. Sign up to get notified about future episodes, along with some other cool new stuff we'll be doing for guitar players. Now, be nice. Go play your guitar and have some fun. Until next time, I am out. Peace, y'all. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.